Okay, the recording app is live, so we can put this up for everybody that misses it later. All right, so you guys want to start with tags?
Okay.
There wasn't. There's a surprising
Oh,
lack. There's a.
Well, let's set the table. Let's set the table. Congratulations on everybody starting up this show. 20 free agent primer show. It's a redo of last year's show that Chris of the Chargers came up with. We got Chris of the Chargers here. We got Dustin Kesey of the Carolina Panthers. Myself, Ku of the Las Vegas Raiders. XFF 2020 is back up, trying to get moving. Quick shout out to everybody in our league. Everybody's got life going on. It's up and down and left and right. And I've been talking to a lot of folks. I know all of us have been talking one-on-one with a lot of folks, what they got going on. And everybody's doing a lot. And keep doing what you're doing. You know, this is a great XFF hobby. But I think it's really neat that our XFF is a brotherhood. And we talk with each other about a lot of stuff that's not football. And, you know, we have fun on Slack about players and trades and stuff. But off Slack, sometimes even on Slack, we talk about real stuff one-on-one with people, what they're doing. And we see a lot of pictures, a lot of stuff, everybody working hard right now. So keep it up, be as best as you can, and do this XFF hobby and do this XFF distraction and do this XFF fun as you can. But everybody just keep doing hard what you're doing. And, you know, XFF Brotherhood is around for everybody to give you a shout out, give you an ear, give you a pep up, give you a smile, give you a laugh, but just keep doing it. So we're excited for this show tonight, get a little stuff going in our league. Luckily, we can keep moving. We had our guys, Sean and Wayne and Mark of the Jets and Dustin did a lot of work putting names and dollars and keeping up rosters, and we're moving forward. So we're excited to kick this show off tonight and next week's free agency. So this is big stuff for our league.
Hell yeah, thank you for that. There were surprisingly little action on any tags this year, really. Same player, NFC, AFC got bid on as an RFA, and only one transition tag challenge was issued.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rinku.
Go, Dustin. I can't hear you. I can hear you a little bit more. A little more bass. Get some more bass in your voice.
More. You want some more bass?
Give me some more bass in your voice, player.
I'll tell you what. As the acceptant of the AFC bids, right? Last year there was not a single challenge. No one even reached out to me about a tag or about a transition tag or a franchise tag. So this year I was kind of getting radio silence for the first, F number of days, but down to the 24th hour, we finally got one person who was brave enough to put something in. So congratulations to the Colts for challenging somebody on a transition tag. It seemed by the time I sent the email to Sean to put it into the league, the guy already accepted. So it's like, never mind, dude. Sorry, Colts. I didn't even ask him what pick he wanted to offer up. And the guys, so.
Did you see what happened immediately after that?
Yeah, the trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, linebacker. Yeah. I think. Chris and I had talked about what the complexion of tags would be this year after last summer's rule implementation with the contract years. We already knew contract years are going to be up. The multi-million-dollar contract years getting tagged up in dollars. What that's going to look like with the $20 million guys getting 3-year, $30 million guys getting 4-year, and so forth. How ugly would that make it with roster movement and how you're going to do? So this was interesting, on both sides. It's usually a lot of defense on transition tag for sure. Shaq Barrett on both sides. Clowney, Dunlap, Everson Griffin, JPP. All the defensive ends got tagged at 14, 16, 18 million because people wanted to keep that. That's a premium position, and you don't want to chase in a fight in free agency. On offense, Keenan Allen on both sides, 30-plus million. Tyler Lockett, 35, 36 million for Seattle. We did it back to back, So you had Hopkins at 31 million. Those are the numbers a lot, that were reflective of big dollars from free agency last year. Julio's and AJ Green's went for that number. But that was kind of the look. A lot of defense heavy, a lot of linebacker heavy, Jamie Collins, Shaq Barrett. and then those really, steep receivers.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of running backs because there aren't a lot of running back movement. So that wasn't there. But yeah, one bid got shot down.
Something interesting about the tags that I think is, putting even more of an emphasis on them, people using them, is exactly what you alluded to earlier with the contract years. To be able to tag a Travis Kelce and get him for, sure, he's $38 million on the tag, but it's a 1-year deal. Where you do something crazy like that in free agency, and you're going to be in cap hell for years.
And he was tagged last year and challenged last year. He had it $32 million, and Arizona challenged Dallas, and he matched it and kept it. Quick shout out. I think we got Miami J. Is that Miami J in the house? What's going on, big player?
Yeah, what's going on, man? I'm here.
What's up, AFC? 2020 player. Good to see you in here.
Yes. Finally got hooked up, man.
We're happy to see you, man. Get in here, represent that East. I think we got some other players. We got Tampa Bay Lendell. Let's get a shout out to him. I see the AFC North represented times 2. I see an ugly dude with some San Francisco Gatorade in his system. That's probably Sean. And I see Cleveland Browns Len in the house too. So let's give them a shout out too. And so we got some good looking folks.
We're doing a talk show.
We got the New York Giants from NFC, Brian Waddle's in the house. So we got a whole crew in here. Thanks for jumping in, guys. At the top, we just wanted to tell everybody, we're happy to put the show on. Chris organized this second row just to put some information out. But, of course, everybody's working hard in their lives and their hobby right now. And, we do this as a side first. Second, everybody do your life first. And, especially with Jay here dialed in, shout out to he and Philly John, the first responder type people that are doing hard work. Appreciate you, man.
We appreciate it, man. We appreciate the love, man.
Hobby going right now. We got fun going right now. So XFF rolling and the Brotherhood rolling. So
we appreciate it, man.
See you. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah. So these tags, that was a very quiet desert, like you had predicted, because of those years and the dollar amounts. Yeah, Kelce 38. I mean, there's some big whopping numbers over there. 38, 36. But I think we got Jay over here. He got somebody at 41. The white boy in Wisconsin ain't going nowhere in the AFC. He got 41 on Aaron Rodgers.
That's right. I gotta hang on to him until I get a decent other quarterback. So I gotta franchise tag him until I get somebody else that I could develop, man.
Now I thought behind you Danica would be standing there. When you pay 41, I thought you get a home appearance with Danica and like a lunch date. I thought bring you a lunch.
Yeah, it is a lot, man. Trust me, I've been tempted to drop him, but I'm looking out there, man. I don't want to take a chance on free agency and not picking up anybody.
I thought it was like during Jimmy V week on ESPN when they have those experiences you bid on,
Yeah.
$5,000 and like the NFL Sunday crew comes to your house for your fantasy draft. I thought that's what it was. 41 million, A-Rod and Danica together. I thought you get to drive a car at a racetrack. So they didn't tell me what the options were. I would admit.
I assume you're at least gonna go deliver the check in person and at least touch Danica's butt, right? At least a feel.
But okay, gotta have your player. Gotta have your player. Go ahead.
Yeah, man.
Were you surprised to see the Bills match on Demario Davis?
What he told me, he was looking at the landscape of linebacker, the players that were multi-year and at that high number. Wagner, I think, is on somebody's roster in our side at 29 or 28. I think the Jets own him. Sean had David at 24. You mentioned got traded moments later. There's a couple of guys at that number. So I think what he had looked at was, is it palatable or not? It turned out it was not a topic had he transition tagged versus franchise, because probably it seems the Colts would have put that number to get the 3 anyway. So, had he tried to transition at, I think it's 18 whatever million instead of the franchise was 20-some and 21, it doesn't seem to have mattered. It wouldn't have deterred the Colts. But
right.
No, I don't think I'm surprised. I think he said that, he knew that's a foundational piece. He felt he had the money. And so, I think he made that decision when he let Marvin Jones go. he had debated tagging him as his second receiver under the transition label. And then he felt, no, that's not worth it. I'll keep Keenan Allen. So I think in his mind, the money was allocated. I guess not.
Now, with between Allen at 32.9, Demario Davis at 24. I mean, that's 56 in 2 players. After that, looking through the salaries, the Bills have $7 million going into free agency.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I mean, they were a playoff team, and they're trying to run it back. Essentially the same, but yeah, I'm wondering, be interesting to see what they do or don't do in free agency.
Going into free agency with under $20 million is basically, you're cleaning up the pieces.
And we've had that run it tight formula before. I mean, I think Cam has mentioned that on Slack before, and Sean has mentioned it. Sometimes when you feel set, and that's your plan, is I'm going to lay low in the weeds. I'm keeping it real tight to the vest. I'm cut tight. I'm running a lean ship. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to be the one guy at the timeshare seminar that says no to those guys, and I'm not signing anything. No.
Yeah.
I'm able to say no, and you're not going to do anything in April. You're sitting in May. You're probably not really active in the draft either. You're just waiting and laying low till August, September, and a couple of button-up, tighten-up moves here and there, and that's probably what your plan is. But to do that, like we just said, that's 3 or 4 months of keeping it tight, and because that's the ship you're running. It can be done, but it requires a lot.
Yeah. Now he's got
what ship do you run in, Rinku?
What kind of ship? I'm running it tight. I run a tight ship with $56 million. There's a difference. I run a tight ship with when you're Indian and Asian, that's a tight ship with XFF. I run a tight $56 million available ship. Some people run a $123 million tight ship. Everybody. The commissioner, in NFC, got to win.
Somebody's driving that ship?
Yeah,
He's got 10 players, I think, now.
He got 10 players. He tells every year he like Coach Belichick. He just mumbles to them, y'all don't win a title, you fucking out of here. And in December, if he won, he won. And if they didn't, they just all out. They all out. There's no Christmas bonuses. They get one 1986 fruit cakes. That's what Wayne hands out. Pink slips and fruit cakes. That's what you get. They're stocking.
Adam, you're so loud.
Is that Adam with the background noise?
Yeah, that's
A million kids running around.
It's gotta be.
Is the mic up your ass or what?
just using my phone.
It sounds.
You pick in the back, though.
What?
He painted that. He painted that himself.
I like the vibes with the. I don't know what's in there, but
You don't have to mute it. Shout out 2019 champion. What's going on, Big Claire? We see you.
Hey, what up?
The Bills are in a good position to run it back with 57 on roster. The other team that is transition tagged, a big name, and has only got about 9 heading into free agency is Steelers' Dave.
Right.
And he, again, is in a good position to run it back. He's lost no major players. He's in a good position to do the same thing.
I think he's got an amnesty he's got to do, but we'll see.
Talking Le'Veon
I'm going to wait
Bell?
till the last second. That's what I was thinking. I mean, there's not a lot. We don't have a lot in the FA and the AFC, so
yeah,
nothing to really. Except for quarterback, obviously.
This year the 2 Super Bowl teams really didn't have a lot of $20+ million hired gun types.
Yeah.
This year, particularly the 2 teams. Shout out again to Adam and to Dave. They have a lot of players that are 7, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10. A lot of it because Adam's team is built upon the draft for 2-3 years. So those guys are all 2, 3, 4, 5 million, 2, 3, 4, 5 million. There wasn't a lot of $23 and $33 million dudes bought in that manner. and Dave has that as well. So I think the highest player he had with a couple of teams, he did have the one Le'Veon Bell shot he took last year in free agency, $32 million for 4 years. But other than that, a lot of 16s, 12s, 9, 8, 9, 8. His linebacking unit all in single digits. A lot of the offense single digits, and so he's had it like that. So that was one thing that they both shared in common.
Yeah. Looking at all the playoff teams, I didn't dive as deep in the NFC, but looking at the AFC playoff teams, I don't think there's been a lot of roster turnover. I didn't see any major, big name, huge losses that I saw anywhere.
No, seriously,
I mean,
does anything jump out to you on the NFC side, Dustin? Is like, a playoff team that lost a huge name, or is it pretty much there's not a lot of rollover?
I mean, some big free agent names have hit the wire. I mean, we're talking Jordan Cameron, Bobby Wagner, Rodgers, Bell, T.Y. Hilton, Sanders. So there's some guys over there. So some teams have lost some talent. I haven't isolated the individual playoff teams. I focus more on the offseason on my team needs versus the competition. So it hasn't. I really haven't been scouting other team needs. But I think as we get closer to the draft and start getting into the free agent, like into the ditches of it, to start to realize what teams are targeting one position and who my competition, is. I think that's when I'll start to focus on some of those, ancillary things.
Sure. Now the RFA, same guy, both sides. Steven Sims got bid up. 33 for the Giants in the NFC and $10 million for Kansas City.
Arizona.
Was it Arizona?
Yeah.
That's right. The Giants made the first bid.
No, I did.
Arizona kept it. Right.
I bid, and Arizona last second me on the clock there in the message board. There should be some kind of timer that we can see, like a New York Times, clock, so I know what's happening.
I don't know.
It was well played by Vincent.
I don't know who taught that guy to bid with 57 seconds left.
Yeah. So I go to the.
I don't know.
The funny part is, I go to the AFC side. At 3:59, I see the exact same player bid on by a different team.
I don't know who was on the phone with Arizona telling them when to push the button. I don't know who did that.
I don't think there is in Arizona. I think it's. I think you're running two teams. I'm covering the conspiracy right now.
Hey, I said that last year, Dustin.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other than the fact we met Arizona and they got married to a woman. So, I know I could hire an actor to be Arizona for the Vegas trip, but how do I hire a woman to get married with him?
That's really going
extra
mile there.
That must have been expensive. That's all I can say.
What do you want?
I hope it's worth Arizona, finishing in last.
Oh, yeah.
You do that too.
Yeah, we did find out that Finkel is not Einhorn.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I think this year, as far as the free agency thing, you talked about it. Dustin had mentioned that. There's definitely a contrast, the first big contrast, two sections coming up this year. First of all, the money's about the same. We got about $825 million available. NFC. We got about $830 million in the NFC. So there's going to be a lot of dollars available. That's a Bengals. Cam just joined us.
I feel like I
What's Cam doing in that pick?
I gotta yell at my team.
He's living everyone's best life right now.
Cooking, boys.
Not talking mute.
You got Bobby Wagner, Cameron Jordan,
That's Darnold.
They have three big names available on their side, and I think on the AFC side we don't have those three big levels of names. So that's one glaring part. Yeah. So you talk about playoff teams; those are three names that probably fell off some playoff teams. We always talk about quarterback in XFF. Big glaring difference between quarterback this year on both sides. You got three teams in AFC that have no quarterback. They need two. You got about 7, 8 teams that have one, and maybe 2 or 3 that have two already, so they don't really need one. In the NFC side, everybody technically has a quarterback that starts or plays right now. Now, the opposite difference is on our side in AFC, we've got about 8 or 9 quarterbacks that are available that have jobs, you could argue, and about 3 more that are challenging for jobs. Those guys that got the backups jobs this last few weeks.
Yeah, the Nick Foles.
NFC, they only have about 3 guys with jobs. They've got Stafford, Rodgers, and Rivers. That's it. The other names on their side are backup types. So, but they've got depth, I think, and sexy name with those big scorers. The Cam Jordan, the Wagner. They've got 8 names at linebacker. So they will have probably more action. But dollars spent are always curtailed. I think the big topic for this show was, what did last year show us in our league? We had a couple of sexy people bid $30 million in 29s, but we had a lot of 5-4-3, 5-4-3.
Yeah.
Last year in the NFC, those guys bid 9-10-9 on running backs: Murray, Lamar Miller, McCoy. You didn't have to spend as high. So I think that's what we're looking at in free agency on our side.
Yeah, for sure. Last year, names that went for huge dollar amounts but had disappointing seasons. On our side, Le'Veon Bell obviously would have to be at the top of that list. How you feel about the money you spent on Damian Williams last year, Rinku?
Yeah, no, I mean, last year, the Damian Williams dollars, I mean, he didn't come through. He was injured, had a handful of games, didn't come through, was very destructive in the middle of the season, November stretch when needed the most, and didn't. You know, Damian Williams is a player right now. His beautiful games have been non-XFF games, in reality, in January games. That's his problem now. For 2 years in a row, we've seen he was hot. Last year, down the stretch, nobody owned him. It was a weird story in XFF. He was picked up right before the Super Bowl by both teams, and neither team played it because it was a waiver that no one was aware of. He did well in the reality postseason. Coming into this year, people bid high on him and didn't come through. And now in January, again, did something good again. So now we'll see going into next year. I think the other big name on both conferences, A.J. Green, being injured all year. I think 2 years ago with Le'Veon Bell and the holdout, Cam is on the show right now. He remembers that. He had him that year, and I think Saints Nick had it last year. Now this past season, A.J. Green, $25 million in 3 years. He's gone up to $30 million now, and the owners didn't get a lot of production out of that at all. So,
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So we saw Cam for a second. I think he's letting everything grow until he's allowed out of the house. There he is.
Oh, that's 100% correct. I don't need to look good for anybody right now, other than you guys. So I'm good with that.
We're in the same boat, Cam.
Cam made a business decision. Once he realized Corona shut everything down and he didn't have to go good for the strippers at his bachelor party, he said everything can go back. Okay. His bachelor party's postponed anyway. He said, I can make this shit look rough. It don't matter.
It's online.
We're going to give you an online bachelor party.
This is the closest I'm getting, eh?
I mean, you can lick the camera and all if you want to. You can pinch a little bit and lick if you want
to. Ku, you got those dollar bills?
Maybe you should be afraid to serve.
Dollar bill gun. Still, I got the gun. We can make it.
Ku has all the video from last year you can review.
Nice.
For anyone, the right to do that.
So what I missed, boys?
No, we just look at the name. I said dollars are high, 800 million on both sides. I think last year's dollar bidding, the quarterback market on both sides in the AFC NFC with the way the contracts were handed out. Last year, Matt Ryan and NFC 15, 11 million, Breeze 11 million, Tom Brady 10.
What's wrong with me? You're the fucking old.
You had some numbers.
Hey, who's watching TV?
Yeah,
somebody's got to turn their mic.
That's some real life stuff.
Someone needs to leave that shit.
What are you fucking joking me right now?
No, I'm not fucking
Len,
joking with
maybe?
you right now. What are they watching?
I think it's Len, maybe? It's showing it's spiking.
Who?
If you look at his avatar, it's like
yeah.
I don't think that's a movie. I think that's his real
It's
house.
either Len or whoever's on the far. Is that Brian? Maybe he was on earlier. Maybe not.
Can you
That
mute
doesn't sound like something Brian would watch.
It's the one who's showing as blue and light blue. I can't see a name of that person.
On the far right or left?
For me, it's the far left, but
Yeah, the last person.
there's
on
two
mine-
that don't have a yeah.
Brian Waddle. I'm gonna text him and see if it's him playing TV.
It might be him because Len, I think, is the other one. Yeah, it's not Len. That would be Brian. That's it.
Okay, I just sent him a thing. Turn your TV down. Let's see if it works.
So
Focus. Focus on one thing.
what? Kiko Alonso was a huge disappointment.
No, this one doesn't.
And I've
have
been
the,
way too much on last
plug.
year. Alec
This one.
Ogletree, I think, for
Just has the
17.6 would
one
be a
single
huge
plug that you
disappointment.
Oh yeah, he's a June drop maybe. I don't know. Maybe he'll sign that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. You have to be able to
Mike
No.
Davis went nowhere.
only one left.
Oh yeah.
I think KJ Wright was a really good signing for Jacksonville last offseason.
Yeah.
So yours is like tomorrow's. It doesn't have this little thing here to go in.
Looks like Mark Barron was a big disappointment. So going into this year, who do you think are going to be some players that are going to get bid up way too high and be a disappointment?
Oh, and be a disappointment.
Yeah. Who do you think looks juicy, like Malcolm Brown in L.A., the running back? Who do you think looks like somebody who's going to get bid up?
That was going to be again.
I got a couple guys on the NFC side.
Go, Dustin, go. I'm listening.
Let's talk about T.Y. Hilton with Rivers as quarterback. How much
Yeah.
is he worth? I think he's going to go high. I think he's been a 20 per year guy until he was dropped. What about a guy like Emmanuel Sanders in New Orleans?
Emmanuel Sanders
What
from
do you-
New Orleans.
Is he a second fiddle guy?
Well-
Can he produce? Is he a Teddy Ginn?
Well, Dustin, on Hilton, do you think he's going to have a bad year?
I mean, can Hilton stay on the field?
Well, I'm hoping every other year or every couple of years he can stay on the field.
I'm thinking the Corona has a better chance than T.Y. Hilton to stay in.
Now, Corona will be on the field for sure.
He's arguably a top 5 NFC list. With you've got Hilton, Sanders, Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, and Edelman.
Also
Those
on
5,
Jeffrey.
6 are probably the biggest names on y'all's side. So somebody,
Yeah.
Jeffrey Anderson. I mean, you got Robbie Anderson now in Carolina. There's been rumors of DJ Moore moving on. I don't know about how true that is, but
Right.
I think Le'Veon Bell again. He's the only
Le'Veon
running
Bell
back
again.
really. Yeah, you can't name a second running back. What, Boston Scott, Breida, Brian Hill?
no, y'all only have the one.
We have one running back. That's
Yeah.
it. So once he reaches 10 million, he's already been paid too much, and he's probably going to get to 20.
Yeah. How about tight ends over there?
We got Griffin, we got
There.
Olsen and Witten. So we got the the oldest tight ends in the history of the NFL,
Yeah.
and they're the free agents. And then you got Griffin with Darnold. He's a top 5 quarterback. So
Well, they've got
Does someone own?
the name that's interesting to answer your question, Chris. Fells, I think, is available on both sides. And now with Hopkins leaving Houston, some owner is going to look at that as a target share. Rate is available on the side. Somebody might look at that for
If not, you're out.
Rudolph's available on the NFC side, and now Diggs is gone. And Jarwin, the new sexy name, obviously, with Witt moving on finally from Dallas, they have that at NFC. So the NFC has 4, 5, 6 names there at tight end. We mentioned the linebackers that NFC has. Wagner, the prize. They've got Barr, Whitehead, Kwiatkowski, Vaughn Miller. They've got a middle range, Hightower, and Kendricks and the Merciless of the world. They have LB1s, LB2s, and LB3s on the NFC side. 4 big names at defensive end, Jake. Cameron Jordan, obviously a $20 million plus guy. Robert Quinn now in Chicago opposite Mack. Y'all have Brandon Graham on y'all side, old but solid.
Hey.
Justin Houston had a nice year, had close to 200 for Indianapolis, and traded for Buckner. So There's 4 real good looking on there.
You're right. I was right.
As contrasting to us in the AFC side, at defensive end, we have Quinn as well. But there's a drop off. After Quinn, we don't have the sexy 3rd, 4th, 5th name. We got Irvin, and that's about it. Jerry Hughes, Mayoa, old Michael Bennett. So we have the one chase. Linebacker, we don't have a Wagner. So I think that answered your question why the transition tag bid was matched by Buffalo. We don't have a Wagner. We don't have a Levante David. We don't have those guys. It goes straight to Trevathan, Kwiatkowski, and now you have a bunch of 201, 198-point guys, Preston Smith, older Thomas David, though. We have a
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting this year to see who actually gets up over 20. You know, there's a real scarcity, and, you know, with a lot of money to throw around and a scarcity, are people going to, you know, keep that money and bid 10, 15 on everybody, or are they just going to let that money fly? And, you know, you're going to wind up with a bunch of overspending. I'm real curious to see how that's going to play out this year.
We'll call them amnesty bids, right?
Right.
That's what's going to happen.
Well, now the amnesties are up. We've already had AFC 9 teams already, and I think if I remember, 3 or 5 NFC already used them. So at this point, almost double.
Hey, who's got the music?
It's definitely Len. It's like
Len?
he's watching a movie.
Let me hit this guy up. Let me.
How do I? All right, I tried getting rid of him, but I didn't see that I can.
Yeah, can you bounce it out?
I tried. I clicked on his avatar and hit end, and it cut me out, and I had to bounce back in.
Hell no.
Oh, we got room for one person to jump in, though. Oh.
Did it work?
Nope. He's still.
Oh, did it
You
work?
haven't heard from Brian?
There you go.
Brian, he just texted me. He's listening. He texted me that it's not him.
Yeah,
He said definitely not.
it's definitely Len. I could see.
And it worked. It worked. I slacked him 3 times. He must have heard it. Okay.
Okay, good.
That works. Okay.
Okay.
Silent.
So amnesties are up. I think with the $800 million in cap space available on both sides, if there aren't names to spend the money on, then maybe why we see, you mentioned the trade count. I posted the other day, as of 83 days into the year, the NFC was up to 10 and the AFC was up to 16 now. We just had some fresh trades last night. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens and Jaguars made a trade, and then Carlos of the San Francisco 49ers made a 2-step trade, made a double trade with Green Bay and Philly. So the NFC's up to 10 and the AFC's up to 16. We've had movement in that regard, so maybe the trades this summer will be people buying someone else's heavy dollar player from last summer that's like an ankle weight, and that may be what's going to have to happen.
Are you sure it's not 17 in AFC?
Were there 2 trades?
Well, I did one last night,
No, you had 2.
and then
You
one.
had 2. Colts, the Colt Love David trade.
Yeah, Colts, yeah.
Okay, so AFC 17 and NFC 10. So that's a solid before free agency pace.
Yeah,
We
just look
haven't
over
talked about quarterbacks yet. That's the big FA list in the AFC.
That, the AFC has 3 teams with no quarterbacks. They're all in the West.
Yeah.
Vegas, Los Angeles,
There are
and Chiefs.
1, 2,
No starting
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the AFC side who only have 1 starter,
Yeah, and then
and
there's
3 with no starters.
They have 2 teams. Yeah, Houston, Baltimore, and Indy have 2 players that are starters. The Chargers, the Raiders, and the Chiefs have no players that are starters.
Nothing.
Everybody else has at least one. In the NFC, everybody has at least one guy. They're set. So even though they have 3 names available, no one's in desperate need.
Now, Al is sitting on 3.
Yeah, could be.
He's got he's got Brady Carr and Drew Lock.
Yeah.
Now
Cincinnati,
who knows what the hell is going to happen there? But
Eagles have the hottest trade commodity at quarterback. They've got a young guy, Sam Darnold, came out a couple of years ago. He's got some ingredients. He's got some storyline behind him. If you read up on Slack, I mean, he's good. Now, Chris of the Chargers was telling me he's like 28th ranked in points per game one year and like 33rd. 33rd ranked out of like 32 teams in the league. That's kind of like saying when I rank law enforcement agents, I say CIA number 1, FBI number 2, police local commissioner number 3, captain of my local police number 12, sergeant of my local police number 22, safety patrol at the elementary school 33. So that's
what about crossing guard?
Crossing guard's 29.
Oh, okay.
So patrol's 33. That's kind of how the law enforcement chart goes. So that's what you're looking at if you trade for Sam Darnold. And he's out there. He's available. He's negotiable, I heard. So you can look at him, I mean, and try to make something happen. So I don't know.
It starts with a first or a high second, I think is what I remember being told.
Well, you see,
he'll give you a third, too.
When you go to the orchard, he be growing those fruits a lot. You know, he be plucking these fruits and seeds in the draft. He grows them out there, and then he got a whole bunch of, on his little vineyard, he got running back aisle. He got the grapes for the wine. He got the receivers over here. But the problem is he don't realize when you try to grow a quarterback at XFF, that shit don't grow. It stays green. It's still raw and broke. Nobody wants that shit. And if you can't sell it, you can't force somebody out there, So you try to sell a quarterback after you groomed it, it's kind of like, it's like putting a sofa out on the curb at your house. You hide behind your bushes and wait. Somebody walks by and they look at it like, what's wrong with this? Did Poppy pee on the sofa cushion? Is it turned over? What's going on? And you just wait in the bushes with your hand in your pants, hoping somebody will take that deal. Now you can rub one out. But until then, you just wait in the bushes for somebody to take this broke shit. So, that's kind of how you look at it with a quarterback like Darnold. So I don't know. I'm glad to see what Cam comes wire for that Darnold deal, so we'll see. I had to throw that out there for my boy up north, so I had to let him know.
Just
conclusion to that on the Slack today.
I haven't given much thought to Darnold. It hasn't come up at all, so I don't really know how to assess him. But for me, just where I stand with him now, I don't think he's quarterback. That's well, the starter in the XFF.
Well, where do you put Darnold and Mayfield? I think it's pretty interesting how close they were last year.
Right.
When you consider everything that happened to Darnold, and Baker's got, he's got plenty of receivers and guys to throw the ball to. It's really interesting what Mayfield was able to do versus. Interesting.
Well, I mean, if he'll play, he sometimes just plays alive. He makes things happen downfield. He's always looking. He can scratch a little bullbat, but he's too short. And I know that the height with the Breeze thing, Breeze officially debunked for quarterback. But I mean, I just watched Baker in the pocket, and I would just struggle to find receivers in the progressions. So yeah. I think Darnold with the height advantage, he's a bigger guy. I think he fits the profile. I think if I had to pick one as a GM, I'm probably leaning towards Darnold. And I had a splash in the pan, because last year I don't think he was that good.
Right.
Yeah, maybe Baker will have a different experience this year with maybe a little better offensive coordinator, what have you. But it's I don't know. I mean, if Darnold could get a couple of good wide receivers over there.
Yeah, but what's the path to that?
Off of bring in Perriman, who had a hot December.
Yeah.
But they tried to stretch it out there. I think when it's, XFF quarterback, we talked about this a little bit. Chris and I were talking. It's a very narrow gray area because the dynamic is not a 32 team, it's a 16 team. So because we all only start one and it's 16 of us, it's not 32. That becomes tricky because now you look at yourself and you say, The 16th worst guy is the worst starter in a conference, the AFC or the NFC. The 17 to 32 guy is a backup. The guys we talk about right now are 17 to 32. One of the guys, the guy I'm slamming is like 3. So now it becomes, it's hard to sit on, to wait on their grooming. But in XFF, we only start the one quarterback. So it's so challenging to say, I'm going to get this guy who I may only need to start him one time. If you're fighting in the XFF, you a top 8 team, top 7, you got a top 8 or 7-6 quarterback. That means the other quarterback on your roster, you're not even checking the matchup and debating whether to play him. And when you got one of the top 5-6 dudes, you don't even care about the schedule of your backup. I mean, he's not going to see the field unless your guy's off. I mean, Cam could have Sam Darnold playing my local middle school, and they're only allowed to have 7 men on the field on defense. I could tell him that in week 7. Cam would still start Kyler Murray against the all-Madden defense with 1986 LT and 1993 Reggie White brought from a time machine on the field against Kyler Murray. He's still not going to play Sam Darnold in that regard. So when you look at quarterback in the XFF, you got the second one. It's how much am I going to stretch? How much do I go for? We don't spend a lot of money. These quarterback dollars, after we buy the first one, they drop to like $5 million, $3 million, $2 million every season, every year. The quarterback drop off, in the NFC, 5-3-1-1. In the AFC, people 1-1-2-2 million. And then the draftable quarterbacks are so cheap, you just grab one and wherever you did. We threw up a Slack comment in AFC Trades that had the last 5 years of quarterback drafting in the positions. It was 6s and 5s and 4s and 3s. There were a couple of 2s, but predominantly it's later. So you get in that gray area here is that who can afford to do, you want to pick somebody in the 2nd or 3rd round. Not everybody's rich like the AFC North. Not everybody's a playoff contender. You got to get a skill guy. You got to get a defensive player in round 2 or 3. You got to make a team better. Hard to chase that quarterback on a swing when you already have one and you need help. So that's a very thin gray area, I think, in XFF.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, RinQ, looking at my roster right now, I've got Goff at 1.8, Haskins at 1.8, and Drew Lock at 2.1, right? 3 young, kind of promising quarterbacks. And if we want to go ahead and just insert, let's say, one of the rookies today, let's say Joe Burrow, right? Where's Joe Burrow slotting in today in that ranking? Would he be my best quarterback? Would he be behind Goff? Would he be behind Locke? Is he better than Haskins? I mean, you're talking about draft capital, having to pull the trigger on a guy like Burrow. When where is he going to fall in the spectrum of quarterback ranking? When only the top 10 really matter. Even when you start looking at the 15 to 16 range, even those tangible starters compared to some of the bench guys, there's really not a big delineation there. So it's hard to value the position unless you're getting one of those top assets like Lamar Jackson, Mahomes.
That's a huge point. And here's a secret. It's not a secret. I tell this to Cam a lot one-on-one. I sometimes often don't want to divulge certain stuff to our league because it maybe puts them at an advantage. But I think everyone knows this, but maybe they don't really outwardly know it. Here's the other part of it that's tricky, Dustin. When you're rich, you can do things that broke people can't. A guy like Cam, we make pokes and we do things, but he multiplies picks a lot. He generally carries a lot of 2s, 3s, and 1s. The advantage he gets is when you're in XFF, you only can carry 3 quarterbacks on the active roster. So you're probably got your starter and a backup, and you basically get to pick one fruit that you want to cultivate this year from the farm team. Because here's the thing. When you're a regular guy in XFF, probably that quarterback, like you mentioned, Drew Lock or some of these others, you took in the 4th, 5th round of a draft. When you demote him to taxi to try to carry him through the league, somebody can easily steal that. It's cheap. You got to keep your eyes open. The moment he blows up on Sunday, you're done. The advantage a guy like Cam has, or the advantage you have when you invest a high pick on a player like that is, it costs a lot. Cam is in the position, he carries 3 2s every draft. He can draft 2 skill players, and then he drafts a quarterback. he's okay to demote that guy to taxi because at worst, you or me or somebody has to pay him a second and a third round pick to steal it. He says, yeah, I wanted that guy. I liked him, but at least I got paid. The rest of us are putting Bobo players down there, and we get Bobo comped when they get stolen, and now it becomes a good player for you. Somebody gets a good deal. So his insurance policy is that he drafts players so highly, they have a high sticker price. It's hard to make that decision if you're going to poach or steal it. It's that sofa example I said. Last year we had a couple of sofas that were put out on the curb on purpose. There were a couple of leather couches put out there. You know, Sean had Mike Williams, who's been flailing. Mike Williams hadn't delivered on the promise. Mike Williams hadn't hit 1,212 touchdowns. Sean was fed up with it, but what he secretly did was he threw it out there on the sofa, on the curb. He was waiting for somebody to throw him a 1 and a 2 and steal it like that. Dave did Ronald Jones like that. After he made a trade and got Ronald Jones, who's been lauded and talked about in the AFC, he put him out there on the curb on purpose in the taxi squad. And along came Al and paid him a first and a second rounder for it because he was a first round pick. So it's kind of like that sofa. You got to bait somebody to take it because you probably can't call somebody and say, hey, man, I'll trade you this player for a 1 or on a 2 or 3. They're not maybe going to actively do it. You got to bait that out of them. But with all the rest of us, it's hard to run a quarterback on your taxi. It's an easy steal, and you lose value. A guy who drafts him high, he's got that built-in insurance policy. He can scare you off because you're not going to pay that. We need those picks to make our teams better. We're not all rich like him. We're not all rolling with 65 All-Madden players on a 47-man roster. So that's a built-in trick that's there for him. It becomes an advantage for a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the taxi squad benefit is to be able to get some value back if someone does poach him. So kind of utilizing that rule to his advantage. That's where I got Haskins. I grabbed Haskins for a 3 and 4 when he started getting the job. I was lacking depth. Felt like it was a cheap enough purchase.
I think the 3 from that draft class, and Haskins was last year, you did. I think in the NFC side, Arizona had Josh Allen, and he was on a taxi squad. I think New Orleans got him from him. I think the other one that was in the AFC side, Cam drafted Josh Rosen in the second round, had him on taxi, and Buffalo Bill called him on it, and he took it with some future 2 and 3. And Cam was beside himself because I think he really liked Josh Rosen at the time. He really didn't want to lose that player, but he took the compensation. But it was the first time somebody really bid him, and he did that. But he was kind of taken aback by it. But that is right. Those quarterbacks, like you said, Haskins, Locke. I
think Adam got L-Jax.
Adam got L-Jax in that window.
He poached him from LA. Yeah. I traded him to Los Angeles, and LA put him on his taxi, and sure enough, Chicago poached him.
That's it. When you are trying to make on the come up in XFF, you have to guard, and you can't really. It's tricky. It's really challenging who you're going to demote any given week during the week to make your moves and run your team that week because you're scared you're going to lose your diamond in the rough you've been holding, and you got to keep them close to the vest. It's tricky. When you're up there already, you can make that afford. You miss one, okay, he fell through the cracks.
Remember last year, I think it was after week 1, Cam had Hollywood on the taxi squad. I think he had A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody else. He had
20 yards, 2 touchdowns, right, opening day. Right?
Yeah, they had to get him back up.
So that comes in. I think this free agency group, like you said, we got a lot of money, $800 million on both sides. We've got playoff teams that were new last year. There are some that come up. The contract year addition last summer really will affect, like you described, Chris. You know, you've been talking on Slack about it. Last year, what we learned to do this year is the moment you throw up somebody next week, you type in 9,900 or you type in 19,900 or 29,900. The only negative here is that there's no sexy hot bitch to put that bid on because we don't have any hot chicks in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you're really, really right. Which is going to be one, it's going to be one thing that's going to make this so interesting to watch play out this year is really the lack of sexy free agents.
But that will help with value names. I think we'll have a lot more value names floating around on rosters.
Yeah.
If we have more $5, $6, and $7 million players floating around, we can get those quick flips, and we can get those people that will buy a free agent, and now you can flip it even during free agency in April, and then you can move moves in May during the draft, and then when we're making those draft picks, and you're looking, and people get anxious, want to make trades. That might help roster fluidity and turnover and churning names in our league, which is what we always like to try to do, is get movement and stir.
Yeah.
That might be the resultant of it.
Sure. I think it'd be a great year for building depth on teams.
I mean, like you said, running back, NFC has Le'Veon Bell. We both got old Adrian Peterson, and that's it. There's a bunch of backups. Receivers are about the same. We mentioned Jones and Tate, Jeffrey on both sides. I think a young player that was on both sides, I believe, that was shocking, Corey Davis of the Tennessee Titans is a young player that was drafted a couple of years ago, and he wasn't extended by either owner, I believe, and he was already let go. Even with the Tennessee Titans passing game success, even with A.J. Brown going to number 1 and the looks of maybe Corey Davis could at least be a number 2, that was a young player that didn't get an extension on both sides. That was kind of an eye-opener on both sides.
What do you think?
I mean, he disappointed for a while.
Go ahead, Dustin. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna. I mean, Corey Davis disappointed for the first 3 years of his career, and he started to show some signs of life last year with finally AJ
and he's
Brown
a player that was drafted in the top 6, 7 of the drafts when he was coming. Yeah, you're very right.
And I think Mark Jets picked him, I want to say, second.
I mean, I remember that year in Dynasty.
I have to look.
He was in the mixture of names. If you look at a lot of Dynasty leagues, right, the Fournette name, the Cook, and the McCaffrey weren't the first 3. In a lot of leagues in America, Corey Davis's name displaced one of those. You're very right. Yeah.
Yeah, Davis was a dynasty draft rookie when he came out, and that's why I think he became so disappointing. And I think last year showed glimpses, and I don't think the owner of the team, owner of Corey, was like, I don't trust this 2-game sample size after what I've seen the last few years, and just let him go. Targets in free agency at the receiver position. Hoping I can get him around 8. Just to give some inside information for all the NFC folks out there.
Holla. We got NFC, we got AFC, we got Lendell. Tampa Bay's out here. Don't worry, Tampa's there. Your division mate is there listening to you. He's there.
Yeah. What I was gonna say, one of the impacts, basically the availability of cash, right? Because right now that we're cash rich in this XFF economy, and the free agent pool is very. We don't have that plethora of top stars like you mentioned. So I think what's going to end up happening, and in result of that, is the big name, big contract guys that are on teams now that signed last year, guys like Damian Williams, who have 1 year left on a mandatory 2-year deal. Well, now they become a lot more attractive, because what can you get in free agency? Nothing. You get lucky to get Bell for $24 million in free agency. I got Damian Williams on a 1 year at 24. I could probably sell him for one of your firstborn. So I think that the contract structure is going to finally pay off in some of the way that the capital and equity that's in these teams is not going to be focused solely on free agents. It's going to be focused on acquisitions of other free agents from previous periods or other investment opportunities. So it's going to diversify the whole league and the way that we transact with each other.
The smaller ones will be in August. Last year we had 2 or 3 names. I believe Justin Houston was the one name that was big in June free agency. He hadn't signed yet, so he was a $10-12 million name in June. After that, most of the names are not very expensive in June, and then August, obviously, there's nothing. But last year, I remember on both conferences, if you did a head count of who was rich going into the season in September 5th, first waiver look, it was only about 6 on one side and 8 on the other. So 14 or 13 out of 32 teams were rich and had money because you're going into transactions and you're going into the waiver system we had new last year, and you're going to be blind bidding and spending a lot. This year we'll have 20-something like you were describing. I think everybody will be rich. So when that weekly hero comes up, like we had last year, the Jonathan Williams running back, 12 million, 10 million, the Joe Walker running linebacker, 8 million. There won't be only 1 or 2 or 3 people to watch for on Thursday afternoon. It's going to be 8 or 9 people per conference when the weekly hero who blew up last week is available. It's going to be an equal free-for-all because, as you describe it, I think we're all going to hit September 5th with 26, 36 mil maybe. There won't be a shortage on that date and moving into the season. But as you describe, as we float into the regular season and towards our November deadline again, there will be more people available to move those heavy loaded contracts you said. Sometimes you're out of luck when it comes to the deadline and you're tight. You can't find anyone to make that deal with you. So that, I think, will help a lot of movement and maybe help a lot more. I say that, but I remember on our show, Sean, weren't we so happy that we had so many new playoff names this year? We had so many teams in the hunt going into it. So I keep saying this word turnover, and we need it in our league. But I don't think we needed that much. We're doing a good job. We have new owners rising up. We have new teams rising up, new breakthrough teams available in week 11 and 10 that are fighting. So we can keep it more, I should say. We to keep continuing that because we did have that in our league, which is good.
It's a parity. That's what the league rules are meant to do, is create a fair competition, ground, area where everybody's playing under the same rules and there's not unfair advantages. And I think we've done a good job of expanding on that and making the league more competitive and teams to have their opportunity in the playoffs. Seen some teams this year, the first time I've seen them, and it's been great to see, and it's been great to interact with those teams on a different level because the more they're winning, the more they are. I think the more personality they show, and it's great for the league.
Absolutely. Hey, Dustin, you mentioned that you think that the salary cap tiers are going to start having an effect with the ways that we trade and interact with one another. I know in the NFL there have been some times where people have basically bought cap space with draft picks, right? Have you seen anything like that in the XFF? I saw some people offering on Slack this year, hey, I've got an amnesty, I'll take a player, you know what I mean? Send me a pick, I'll take a player, use my amnesty. Have we seen any, but I didn't see any successful moves like that. Have we seen any of those yet?
I think most part types of transactions happen within other trades, right? It's kind of like, hey, I'm interested in this player, but you got to kind of take this backload contract that I have, this bad contract and part of the deal. It's almost like a negative trade chip, right?
Right.
Very rarely, besides kind of like a late, I see people dump salaries for picks. It's not a great strategy to take on unnecessary salary. Nobody is rich enough in this league, so I think most of the time it's salary dumps is negative trade chips. It's that. That's what I see it.
Right. But looking at someone
like we saw.
Go ahead.
We saw. So LAChris did one on the amnesty with Bill, and then it may not have been as obvious, but Cam did one with what team was that? Was that Colts? Yeah.
So I did one. I moved Marquise Goodwin, 12 million 1 year. It's a small amnesty, about 2.4 mil. And the vessel to that was, I'll buy your amnesty for Kyle Rudolph. And Rudolph was a waiver tag player at 960, so 1 mil. So essentially, you saw in the comments, Buffalo wrote the line, I can see paying 3.5 for Rudolph.
Right.
Meaning the 2.5 he would eat on the amnesty of Goodwin and the 1.0 of the salary. And so that trade. And then Cam did one where there was some draft picks. He moved the Colts up 3 spots in the first.
I saw
moved
that.
back 5th. And the vessel in between was a $14 million 1 year James White.
Yeah,
You know,
I saw both of those. It made me wonder if that was kind of maybe what was going on.
Well, you were the originator of this 2 years ago. You had Eric Decker at $9 million once, and you made that trade with Jacksonville to move money and essentially shifted out $9-10 million, and then you got another $8-6 million player, 15-16 million, and thus send you a 2 with this, and you give me back a 4. It was literally like the reality Brock Osweiler trade.
Exactly.
The Texans and the Cleveland Browns at the time.
Yeah.
You take Weiler's money and a 2, and you give us a 4. So this concept has happened in pop.
Yeah. I was looking, at somebody like Le'Veon Bell on Pittsburgh's roster, who is, at 32 with 3 years? Isn't that what he is right now? Something like that.
Yeah.
Le'Veon?
Yeah. And I'm like, what would you...
He's up to 38-3.
Is he 38-3? Jesus Christ. But yeah, looking at a situation like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at a situation like that, and just starting to think, that was last year was the first year with those mandatory contract links. As we move into year 2 with those, as we move into year 3 with those, are we going to see somebody like Dave, who's in a bind heading into free agency with only 10 mil, ship off Le'Veon in a third?
Probably.
And get a 5th back or something,
Probably.
I could see that. I could see from a rebuilding team perspective. Why not add the pick and add the salary? It doesn't hurt your team.
Right. Exactly. And then next year, as a rebuilding team, because I'm in rebuild mode right now, and I could see doing a move like that, and then Bell is my amnesty next year, and I take a small cap hit. You know what I mean? I'm just curious. It'd be interesting to see when we start seeing those kinds of things blatantly,
Yeah. Or maybe, you do that, you hold on to Bell, he has a good, first 6 games, whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the old Bell, and then you get something,
You flip them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first effect that we talked about is, as you said, there's no sexy names on this paper.
Yeah.
So everybody's been retained.
So what are you doing with your money?
Exactly.
What are you doing with your money? You take somebody's bad contract.
Didn't get dumped. All the sexy names in the previous free agency cycles, if you track 16, 17, and 18's free agency cycles, the notebooks for those ones, there's 7 sexy linebackers. Lavonte David, Tahir Whitehead, Ogletree. There's 6 sexies. There's 5 values. There's nobody good on this paper. That's because they're all locked up on 2 and 3 year deals, like you said. So first we got to wait to get sexy names back in free agency. And the second part's like you said, the only way to put them out there is to cut them and amnesty them. How many are getting that? That's the trick. You got it. People want to soak some points. It's that shift. But I think you brought up a good point on Slack, Chris. We talked about this, and you talk about this all the time. And we talk about this with Jay Vick. We talked last year in Vegas. There's a lot of ways to do XFF, and you were talking about that. It's tricky to keep your feet in both paths of the track. If you say to yourself, I've got high draft picks and I'm going to rebuild in this way, the young way, but I also want to keep my left foot on the track speed where I can have a couple of point-producing players and fight also. It becomes so tricky in the gray because you end up winning a handful but not enough, but now it hurts your capital. And now you're in between because you feel I need to grab these players because they've cost a lot and they got some money and some points. But now I'm steering my resources and my mind away from building. It's really hard to try to do that here in our league.
Yeah,
Are you
I'm
talking
having to
about
give
my
it up.
team?
Go ahead.
I thought you were talking about my 2019 Panthers team. One trade, I trade away my guy. The next trade, I buy a guy. Next day, I trade a guy. Next day, I buy a guy. Doesn't work. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's why I'm saying I'm in rebuild mode now. Like Ku said, he and I have talked about this a good bit where, every year I've known that I need to make serious changes, but you want to stay competitive too. And you really can't do both, And at a certain point, this year was really, the worst year that I've had since joining the league in the beginning. And, it really kind of was like, okay, I can't, like Ku said, keep my foot on the brake and the gas. Got to pick one and stick with it.
it's a blessing and a curse, like Dustin was saying. I had this convo with Dustin when he was describing what he said about himself. I said, no, Dustin, don't look at it in a negative way. Look at it at the beauty of our league. If you want to do so, you can. Just as easily on Monday morning when you wake up and you say, F this, I'm selling off everything and I'm going drafty and youngsy and everybody's date of birth is going to be 20 years old, you can go do that on Monday. But then on Friday, after you've got all your draft picks in your hand and you've sold everybody, if you get a boner and say, you know what, nah, forget that. I'm going to go buy some players and compete now. You can equally do that on Friday, pay the draft picks to people, bring in some veterans that score 185 and 285 and 260, and now you're back to square one on Sunday for lineup day, back where you were. The fluidity of our league and the ability to do so, because you got 15 guys to trade with, is good. But the negative is, as you said, is it's tricky to keep your feet and to try to – you feel you can do both. You feel – I can have a farm system. The joke I made to Cam on Slack is, Cam, that motherfucker has like a baseball team. He got starters in the stadium hitting home runs like Giancarlo Stanton and Trout. Then he's got a AAA team on the back end. His backups could probably go 9-7 in the AFC, basically. Then he got the AA is the taxi crowd. And then he got a single A team in his left pocket. He got Grumman. So he got 4 farm systems going. But he's able to, because he's so long and deep on the roster, he can do. But for the rest of us, it's hard when you're trying to put 21 men out on a Sunday lineup and you're trying to just get LB1, LB2, LB3 filled. And now you've had some draft picks in the summertime, and now you're holding them. What are they doing? They're not hitting me yet. I got to stash it. Am I waiting? I'm waiting. Oh, I got a loss again. It makes you feel, maybe I can't do so. But you feel you want to because you're in an XFF league. You're in a league with everybody. We got these sexy, cool drafting. We got a live show. We got 7 rounds, and people are getting jizzerific for draft pick trades and stuff. So it's an inherent feeling you want to do in a league because we got good owners. You got good convo with everybody, making a trade. It's circular. Is tough. But, I think that's why I try to tell all our young owners that enter our league, it's a big, expansive stuff, man. This XFF is tough.
Oh, and to that point, I think what makes it so hard to predict your path is that it's hard to predict victories in this league. There's so many variables. I look at my schedule and I go W, 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 and then I go back in 2 weeks and I go, holy crap, I was off. That's going to be a W. That's going to be a W. That's going to be an L. That's going to, the perception on the way that teams perform and how transfer and how quickly a talent pool of this large can miss, I guess, divert your attention to what's reality is mind-blowing. So part of it is understanding where your talent lies, understanding your team makeup, and choosing a path early on in the season and not deviating from it. And I think that's the proper way to rebuild. I think we've seen the Bears do it, and he's finally, drinking the fruits of his labor. And I think Chargers, if you stay on that path, I think you'll see some success in the future as well. So.
Yeah.
Jay Vick's on the line still. Like I said, one of the lines I tell him, I say this to Cam when I'm one-on-one with him, and I poke fun at some of the North guys. Sean, I poke fun at, and all through the year when I'm on the show, I call them names. I call them bastards. We call them sharks. We call them juggernaut attacks and all this shit. And I tell them one-on-one, but I also say it on the airwaves when I'm personal with owners and on the league. All that grief we give them, like I said, bottom line, we do give them grief. But this league's fucking hard. None of them got 6 rings. We make fun of these dudes and, it was a trade rape. The shark got another one. He fleeced the guy. He did this. He did that. They ain't got 5 rings. There ain't no Belichick running around here.
Yeah.
Some of those dudes ain't in the playoffs back-to-back. Everybody got a story. Sean told a story last year on our show. He said, I won the thing and then didn't make I didn't even make a wild card the following year. I feel like, like Dustin outlined, I think Adam and Sean, they're real good at these betting lines in reality, the over-unders and the scores. They look at the over-under and the odds for our XFF matchups on a weekly basis. Who's favored by 63? Who's favored by 100? And half the time, by Sunday night and Monday, it's completely flopped. The way Dustin.
Yeah. You know,
so that's there. It's
look
a
at-
hard league for everybody. We're all working.
I rewatched Moneyball not long ago, and
Oh yeah, man.
yeah, real inspirational. But when it comes to football, that shit don't work. The sabermetrics, nobody in football uses it. Nobody in fantasy football uses it because there's too many variables. You know, looking at the scoring, I felt like this year was kind of a down year for wide receivers. So I looked. There's only one wide receiver with over 300 points, 304 points, Chris Godwin. 2018 year league, there were 8 wide receivers over 300 points. One as high as 362.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Year on year on year.
That was like 2 years ago. Somebody had 362.
Tyreek Hill in 2018, it was 362.
Who was it again?
You got that tattoo somewhere?
Hey, Randy Watson. He good. That boy can sing too.
But yeah, I mean the variables are huge.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that looking at the guys in the North, like you said, as much as we joke about them all, it's because we're all looking up to them and admiring that they have managed to do what they have done and the consistency. And they don't always get there, but that consistency in the league that is so hard, it's admirable.
And NFC, they got changeover, but like you said, Dustin said the way the Bears were built. Adam did that with a lot of drafting. You look at the names and look at the draft picks he's made the last couple of years. He was loaded in Vegas, made all those picks. The A.J. Browns of the world, he drafted them. Last year, the year before, the names he's got, Leonard Fournette and those guys, he did it that way. He's not the free agency $25 million way. You do keep a couple turn and burn. So there's that. But yeah, these names this year, I think it's a lot of value. It's going to be tricky. On the other hand, maybe it's the opposite. You and I know the story, and I've said this on Slack before. There's a couple of summers, there's a couple of chases that everybody makes. 2 years ago was that 4-receiver chase. A couple of years ago, you and I chased a guy named Corey Toomer because we thought he was about to get 125 tackles in the Chargers, and we both put 9,500 on that guy. A couple of years ago, Terrell Pryor, $14 million. Shout out to Pittsburgh Dave. I think he got Alan Hearns, $14 million. Somebody had Jeffrey for $15 million. Somebody had Goodwin for $10 million. By August, they were amnestied. 2 of them had been amnestied by then, and now 2 of them washed out. So the money being available will also cause that chase that somebody says, well, I need this. It's not available elsewhere. What do I do?
Yeah. It's interesting, too. We were talking about Corey Davis earlier. It's interesting how sometimes there are NFL teams that for years and years and years struggle to fill a position. Tennessee at wide receiver. It's been years that they've been trying to fill that. And every time someone comes along, like Corey Davis, then, they're snapped up. The Eagles have been trying for years. You hear the Eagle, talk about Eagle. Who is it? Who's the guy to own on the Eagles? And really, it's nobody. But you wind up with people, because we're all gambling. You wind up with people taking shots on them. And you and I with Toomer a couple years, the Chargers are one of those teams too. And the linebacker position, for years, people have been trying to figure it out. Everybody's taking different gambles on guys. And at the end of the day, none of them are worth it, but you're hoping you hit.
Well, it was a calculated risk because everybody who's had a turn there got 125 tackles. Denzel Perriman did it, then he got hurt and got canned. Jatavis Brown did it, and then he got hurt and got sucked. So premise was there that I'm going to get whoever's next up because he's going to get 125 tackles.
Yeah.
He chased these jobs. Tahir Whitehead now got this new job in Carolina. I've nicknamed him Tahir Keekly Whitehead lately. I've been making moves around the league. Blah, blah, blah. And then there's opposite movement now. Ogletree can't get a job yet. Some other teams, how they've approached reality free agency this summer so far. Because of Corona, that impact has impacted us. The names that are supposed to be floating around, they can't get there. They can't get physical. So the injured people aren't hit yet. We mentioned at the top of the show, Jadeveon Clowney got tagged in the AFC. They don't have a team yet.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
$40 on tag in the AFC. Don't have a team yet. Cam Newton was bought last year, $11 million. This year he's available. Doesn't have a team yet. Jameis Winston was a holdout in the NFC, was declined by the Dallas Cowboys. Said, no, I'm not going to pay that for $10 million. He didn't have a job. So those realities are going to affect us in XFF too. So
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting watching the draft too. You know, a lot of those, like you said, the medical can't happen. A lot of the in-person interviews, the pro days, none of that shit's happening.
yeah. Next week it'll be cool. I think the thing we're going to remember the other neat detail of last year that was also very helpful and useful and neat. Remember the new rule we implemented was you could only nominate 2 names every 24 hours.
Right.
So name nomination per 24 hour. That was very interesting as far as controlling the board and not controlling the board, making it even and easy. That was a neat part of free agency that was good. I talked to a lot of owners about that last year. They liked it, and so that was useful. So we'll look forward to that next week when we start on Wednesday, and look at that. Are we? How's our clock? Are we okay? Are you close to? You got more? What do you want to do? We got 2 hours?
I think we've covered all of the kind of things that I had outlined. And
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm getting yelled at here.
Okay. Shout out to Dustin and Mark of the Jets for all the tag work. All those tags and all those bids you had to sort through and email through. Thank God y'all had a lot of energy and time to sort through all those on your emails and not iron all that out. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that, Rinku. I mean, being honest, full disclosure, I just kind of put numbers in there, so
The joke that Dustin and I knew, there was about a 5-second moment in the AFC. I haven't told Cam this. When Dustin posted on the Slack that I've reviewed all the holdouts and the contract extensions and done all the housekeeping in the AFC. Please go check your stuff. I was pretty quick that morning. I checked them all, and I sent him a memo. I said, looks like Blake Martinez is on a long-term contract on the Bengals. He had mistranscribed the numbers, so Blake Martinez was only $4, but his contract years were $8,159. So I was like, oh, hey, Cam's got this guy on lock. We're never going to see this guy hit free agent. So for salary cap was a little off by about $8 million.
exactly.
And then he got changed, luckily. So I said, that's okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank you for that. And Cam spam tried to offer him like 10 times.
On the other hand, if you'd have did that to Donnell Hunter, he never would have traded it. So that would have been stopped. He'd have said, no, I got him in control for 8,000 years. No way I'm letting it go.
Hey, man, appreciate it.
Not at all.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, man. One last shout out I want to throw to our league. So I want to shout out a guy that we all know and love in the AFC. He's like a big brother to a lot of us, a semi-unk to all of us. We might have to re-nickname him Unk, I want to give a shout out to my main man, Buffalo Bill, out west in Arizona, the owner of the Buffalo Bills. As we all know, he's had his health was in work in order the last 2 years. He had been working on battling cancer, and then he recovered, was in remission, and the scans were all good. So in the last 25 hours, I'll end my part of the telecast with this cherry on top of the transition tag bidding and how fast that bid was answered. At the moment the transition tag answer was coming from Buffalo Bill, the man was at home having a chest pain issue and a pulse issue, was ill and headed to the hospital because he thought it may be something with corona or something more serious. During that moment of his life, he makes sure to answer, yes, tell them I'll pay the $24 million for Davis. Nice. Then goes to the hospital. The Mrs. Conover is not allowed because of the health issues right now with corona and everything. So he's all alone down there. He got evaluated, and they did an EKG and a workup. And I had been talking with him and talking to the doctors working with him. So he did have a mild chest pain issue, mild heart attack type moment of angina. So today, last night they did an echogram. They did a heart cath today. Took some pictures of his heart. But he looks good to go. There were not any major blockages on the pictures and squirting the dye and the heart catheterization, so he's good. And after a few hours, he was discharged. So our main man, Buffalo Bill, is at home, resting comfortably in his own bed with Mrs. Buffalo Bill, and he's A-OK. So I wanted to give a shout out to our boy, and he's looking good, and congratulations on that, and good piece of news. I just asked him if he's okay with me divulging that to everybody. He said, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I wanted to put a cherry on top of the commitment to your XFF team, players out there, okay? My man is in a health crisis, but the
No
effing
excuses.
email responded in effing 49 fucking seconds. He told you, no, I want the player 24 mil. Book my shit. If that's not the biggest baller mofo commitment, I don't know what is yet. But right now, the commitment award of 2020, Buffalo Bills, hands down, people.
Hell
So
yeah.
Shout out to my brother.
Boom.
Shout out to my.
He's got my
Want to
vote.
put that out to you. I wanted to tell you earlier, Dustin, but I didn't want to fully reveal everything while this was ongoing the last 36 hours. But I knew you'd get a kick out of that once you heard this and really, really laugh at it. So.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Good looking.
All right,
Phil.
guys. Great show. Thanks, Chris. Great idea again. I'm glad you dig up the software. You so clever and technological to get this cool software you found that's going to be able to record this and put it up for our league. That was great because you were right. The feedback was great last year for those that did it, and they like it. So great idea again, man.
Thanks. And let's do a follow up. Let's do a post free agency.
April
Post free agency pre-draft.
It'll be
Pre-draft,
post free
sure.
agency pre-draft. Yeah.
Boom. Love it, gentlemen.
Draft
Talk to
looking
you
real
later.
quick. I'm in New Orleans, so yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
All
Great.
right,
Appreciate
fellas.
the invite, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Ku.
I'm a holler at you on Slack here in a minute. Are you around for the next couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll holler at you on Slack.
All right.
Appreciate you, Dustin. Congratulations on what's coming up in April, man. Keep doing good stuff. All right,
Thank
Jay
you
Vic
all.
and all the guys. Shout out to Len. Shout
Thanks
out
for
to
listening.
everybody, Miami J and the Giants, Tampa Bay Lindell, Sean, everybody that logged in, Adam, everybody that jumped in on our show. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.